Welcome to this deep dive webinar organized in honor of World Ocean Day that will fall on Saturday, and so we are gathered here today. Today we are focusing on our oceans, big and small. Oceans cover 70% of our planet Earth. My name is Katri Makkonen and I will be your dive master today. We are about to embark on an amazing journey beneath the ocean. We will hear expert views on opportunities and challenges that oceans are facing, and we will discuss European cooperation aimed at tackling biodiversity loss in the oceans and seas. This event is organized by Nurminen Foundation in cooperation with MEDSEA from Italy and Fondation de la Mer from France. If you have any questions for our speakers, please write them in the chat. And let's dive. Our first speaker comes from the world's most famous marine family, the Cousteaus. Fabien Cousteau is an aquanaut. Let's hear what he has to say. Welcome, Monsieur Cousteau.
Bonjour à tous. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Happy World Ocean Week. Of course, Ocean Day is the 8th, but very happy to be here. And hopefully I can bring you on a very short dive into some exciting new project to start off on a positive note, although there's a lot of bad news out there for the ocean. Hopefully this sharing this little trip will give us a little bit of courage to tackle all the challenges that we face. So with that, let's dive into the presentation. I am a third generation ocean explorer. As the name might ring a bell to some of the veterans of life out there, but for those who are young, the passion of ocean exploration was born in the late 1930s in our family and has carried through ever since. More recently, however, so that we don't make this a history lesson, there's been something very troubling that I've seen, which is we talk a lot about the ocean, but we still have a very fundamental disconnect as a species on this planet with our life support system. And as our intrepid dive master has highlighted, we're taught that we think of the ocean as about 70 to 72% of our planet's surface. I think there's a recalibration needed in our mindset with regard to what ocean means to us. And that starts with looking at the world in 3 dimensions. The ocean actually represents about 99% of our world's living space, within which over 90% of our world's biodiversity lives and thrives. And it stands to reason that it's also our great barometer, a very risky place if you go deep, one that is full of wonder and mystery, one that is still locking a lot of the solutions to our future, to the future viability of our children and their well-being. But before I dive too deep into that, I'd like to share with you the project called Proteus. Proteus is the eldest son of Poseidon. He was in Greek legend, the shepherd of the sea and the keeper of knowledge. And I felt that this was a very interesting name for this particular project. Proteus is quite literally going to be the International Space Station of the Sea to address the fundamental question of the missing tool in the toolbox of ocean exploration. For those of you who might remember back in the 1960s, my grandfather built some of the first underwater habitats over 60 years ago. And since then, there's been almost no progress on such a platform. In today's world, there's one habitat left called Aquarius. It's now over 40 years old. It was only built to last about 5 years. And so the question is, why hasn't there been progress? In today's world, we look at satellites and buoys and all sorts of sensor technologies and robotics and so on and so forth in a way to approach an extreme environment, which unfortunately segregates us from that environment. As emotional creatures, as creatures with critical thinking and creative ways to approach things, I feel this is a great missed opportunity to be able to integrate the human element into that extreme environment, that life support system that supports everything that we love, that we know, and that we depend on. And so think about how much tech and innovation has advanced exponentially since the 60s. What if we combine the latest in today's technologies with the ability to have humans live and work underwater for indefinite periods of time? And this would be the game changer in two major ways. And so this is what I'd like to broach in the next few minutes with you. It's why we need to put human beings to work and live in our ocean today. Now, we know about science and innovation, and those things are fantastic, but without education and impact to the general public as decision makers, as a group symbiotic relationship to making this world a better place, we will not make significant impact and advances in the SDGs and the goals that are crucial to making our species thrive for the long term. And this summarizes something very simple my grandfather used to say to me when I was a child, which is people protect what they love what they understand, and they understand what they're taught. Now, some years ago, I had the unbelievable privilege to lead the longest ever mission at Aquarius called Mission 31, where we spent 31 days to live and work underwater to highlight two experiments, if you will. One, does the world still care about the ocean the way they did in the 70s and 80s and the way we should today? And what is the kind of science and technology that we can learn from and develop in that block of time? And is this still a significant platform within the ecosystem of approaches and technologies for ocean exploration today? Well, in both those cases, we're able to do over 3 years worth of scientific experiments in those 31 days. So imagine that correlation of time efficiency by being at the bottom of the sea 24/7 and venturing off and doing all sorts of experiments on hydrocarbon pollution, on predator-prey interaction, on the dissolved carbonic acids that affect our coral reef, and of course, the temperature variations and so on and so forth, as well as learning the intricate behaviors of animals when we're not around. I was blown away by the acceptance of the ecosystem to accept us, as opposed to scuba diving from the surface, to accept us as part of the neighborhood, if you will, as part of the ecosystem. And that really gave us a much deeper comprehension, insight, and the ability to analyze things than we would from a surface vessel or some other means. We were also able to reach over 100,000 students live from the bottom of the sea. Now, I'm talking about a decade ago with those kinds of technologies. Imagine what we can integrate in today's world and into tomorrow's world as far as the outreach. So with that said, we had generated over 34 billion unique media impressions and so on and so forth, which is less important to the science, except to say that it makes science sexy. We are able to invite the general public, most of which will never get a chance to peek below the blue veneer, to be able to experience virtually what the boom of a Goliath grouper does in a split second by leveraging things like the edrotronic camera, which shoots over 10,000 frames a second, or to look at the biomechanics of a mantis shrimp as it hunts with its amazing pinchers, and really dive into more of the underpinnings of scientific information, including, of course, climate change related issues, amongst others. And all of this highlights the value of putting human beings and technology on the final frontier of our oceanic world. And this is really what Proteus is about. It's an ocean technology accelerator. that highlights science and research, discovery and exploration, and of course, global engagement. And if we have those two strong pillars of science and public engagement, we can change the course that we've set for ourselves. We can make change happen in short order, but we cannot do it without those two crucial elements. Now, if we look at the need, if we look at the value that a platform such as Proteus brings, it touches on 12 of the SDGs. Of course, number 14, which is the vastly underfunded SDG of the group. And to this, I say we are squandering an opportunity, whether we be in the nonprofit, for-profit, or government level, to invest in the most valuable aspect of what makes us a viable species on this planet, which is our life support system, our oceanic part of our world. If you ask an astronaut or anyone who's been out and about in the natural world, what is the thing that makes this planet viable as a living space? It's ocean. When we go to other planets, we are looking for water. We are looking for signs of life. No water, no life. No healthy ocean, no healthy future. It's that simple. And within that context, a platform, an ecosystem such as Proteus really plays into the needs of generating a balance with nature, looking at it as a natural resource bank account and living off the interest that it bears rather than eating away its capital. And that plays into food systems, looking at the climate change related issues. The great barometer of this planet is the ocean. What is happening to the ocean? We have so very little data. I am astounded when we go to the United Nations or any other platform that every time we talk about climate change related issues, the ocean is very seldomly called up as an integral, fundamental part of the conversation. When we look at things such as sustainable cities, well, an underwater village requires a closed loop system. How do we make sure that we treat our waste? How do we make sure that we feed our aquanauts in ways that can then be translated into the everyday life of the average citizen so that we can have a better balance with nature and have less of a negative impact? And so on and so forth. And I know that I'm running low on time, so I'm going to go quickly through this, and I'm sorry for those who would like more clarity, and I'm happy to answer questions always. So this is really more about a collaborative platform than a singular source for a private group. As a social good enterprise, we're opening up this platform to scientists and researchers, filmmakers, innovators, entrepreneurs, of course. It's really about not only catering, of course, to academia and government, but also looking at life sciences and engineers to build the most advanced modular station so that we can continually upgrade as needs and desires be to cater to the most advanced requests for tomorrow's world, not yesterday's. And having this semi-permanent presence on the final frontier is really a game changer for mid and long-term research, to be able to look at the trajectory of the impact that we have on our planet and to be able to modify our behavior to be able to replenish that ecosystem that we so vehemently depend on and admire as a beautiful place. Now, lest you think that this is a singular platform, we're actually looking at a unified ecosystem of having a network of strategically placed habitats to have a better finger on the pulse of our oceanic world. The thing that brings us 70% of our oxygen, that brings us all the intangibles of the feeling of well-being when we walk down a beach and see a clean beach with no plastics, and so on and so forth, and be able to, of course, to feed our needs for the future. We've done a lot of work. We started in Curacao, where we have a very strong relationship with the government, the Dutch government, and the government of Curacao. We started our work in 2021, which was 1 year after we publicly announced Proteus. We did a comprehensive map of the marine park down to 1 centimeter square by 13 kilometers and 600 meters deep. This particular map was given to the people of Curacao as well as the general public. Even though we only needed 1 kilometer square for our needs, the social good aspect of the enterprise was paramount as a give back to the general public. And this is built into the model itself. 2023, we sent out a lot of sensors. We have a sensor array right now of 38 sensors, and we're continuing to build on that. Just to summarize, the Ocean Decade has blessed us, or at least the IOC, I'm sorry, has blessed us, and we're part of the UN Ocean Decade as an integral part of that information and data gathering so that we make better decisions in our future. As well as reaching out, although we don't have an aggressive public publicity campaign, we have been able to garner over 17 billion media impressions. So engaging the public of tomorrow, the next generation of ocean explorers and curious people out there is absolutely paramount to the approach. The Global Engage is igniting that global storytelling, which our family has been passionate about for 3 generations and has been absolutely paramount to be able to change the mindset of people in our oceanic world. And we're very blessed to have some amazing partnerships. These are just a few of the ones we can actually talk about today. We have many more that we can talk about tomorrow. But with that said, I wanted to say, thank you so very much for giving me a little bit of your precious time. You know, no kid has ever dreamed of growing up becoming a robot, although robots are pretty amazing tools in themselves, and generating that human AI interface to explore the final frontier on our planet is one that not only engages the terrestrial beings that we are, but even the astronauts out there want to train on this platform before they go into another extreme environment far, far away from this beautiful little oasis in space. And so we're very blessed to be able to work with them as well. All I have to say is when you think about the ocean, think about our future. When you think about the things that you decide in your everyday lives, think about the impact on the next 7 generations as it pertains to the health of our oceanic planet. Happy Ocean Day, happy Ocean Week, happy ocean life.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your time. You said that no kid dreams of becoming a robot, but I think a lot of kids dream about becoming an aquanaut, and you are a real aquanaut. So what does it take to become one?
It's a very good question that I didn't even broach on. I apologize for that. An aquanaut is very much an astronaut underwater. Where recreational scuba diving ends, the aquanaut life begins. If you look at saturation diving, aquanauts are a subset of saturation diving. So you have commercial, those brave men and women that go down to up to 1,000 feet, 300 meters, 400 meters to work hard and then be locked up in a chamber for 23 days to desaturate. We're flipping it on its head. We're opening up a hole at the bottom of our living space so that we could go in and out as often as we want. And as saturation divers ourselves, we are able to work 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day in that water column every day until we're done gathering that information, telling those stories. And it really gives us the ability to have unprecedented access to that bottom world. When you're a scuba diver, recreational scuba diver, you come down for 45 minutes to an hour at 20 meters, and then you have to go back to the surface just when things start getting interesting. With aquanauts, just when things get interesting, we get into the water and we're able to commune with that unbelievable fireworks display of life so that we can gather that data and learn more from our aquatic ecosystem. It's just really exciting. And you can become an aquanaut in many ways. The question is, what does it why do you need to become an aquanaut? Because this is really a training like an astronaut, so it does require a lot of commitment, and with that commitment comes great benefit.
You mentioned many of the problems that oceans are facing. What still makes you stay and remain positive regarding the oceans?
Yeah, I've had the privilege of diving since I was 4 years old, scuba diving since I was 4 years old. By the way, in today's standards, that's a no-no. But you know, the 1960s or 70s, sorry. So I've had a few hours underwater, let's say. I've seen things change quite a bit in my personal experience in my lifetime, many of them depressing. In today's world, there's a lot of very depressing news. The good news is that we can communicate the way no one could communicate before. And those who have the ability and desire to go scuba diving are the sentinels of the sea, are the ones that need to come back with that information and propagate that information to those who will never get a chance to do this. What I see is hope in the eyes of children, the can-do attitude. What I've seen in people and communities that do engage in proactive movements, a change, not only in the mindset, but also in the activities, restoration activities, creating marine protected areas that rebound, that have a resurgence of health because we have actually given it a chance. And a burgeoning, a beginning, not enough, in our practices in our daily lives, to be able to look at more sustainable options in our food systems, to look at a better, more logical approach in our energy systems. But we need to adopt more of this. Why are we not looking at things like OTEC, ocean thermal energy conversion, a baseline energy that could power the world, in quotations, 9 times over without any significant environmental impact? Now, this is not a panacea. Don't get me wrong on OTEC, but the idea of going and implementing solutions rather than debating. The time for discussion is over. We've been talking about climate change since the 1960s. When will we get onto the bandwagon and start making solutions happen? It's beneficial to the public, to our planet, and to the businesses that incorporate it. So there's no discussion to be had anymore. We need to implement solutions. And with this, I see young people and those who are now becoming decision makers implementing some of these solutions. So this gives me hope, but we need to go faster.
Monsieur Cousteau, thank you so much for your time, for your message, and for your commitment, and the best of luck with your project.
Thank you very much. Happy Ocean Day.
And now it's time to introduce our next speaker, marine scientist Dr. Lucy Woodall. Dr. Woodall will discuss how climate change, just when we were discussing climate change, impacts oceans and seas. Please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. It's such my pleasure to be here today. Okay, wonderful. But I thought I'd just start with a little bit of a summary about myself, and you'll know why I'm talking to you here today. I'm an associate professor in marine conservation and policy at the University of Exeter, and I'm also principal scientist of the NGO Nekton, which is based in the UK. And the work myself and my lab do is thinking about everything below 30 meters, below the scuba diving depths that we've just heard about, what's going on deeper in the ocean, down right into the depths. And I have the privilege of working with nations throughout the Indian Ocean, nations who invite us in to work with them to explore their oceans in a way that they need, so they have the ocean that they need for their future. So I'm going to talk today a little bit about the ocean. What does it do for us? What are the links between climate change, the ocean, and some of those impacts and mitigations, and that complex relationship? And then finally ending on some global patterns and geographic differences. So this is me, that little star. This is where I'm sitting. I'm sitting in the southwest of the UK, and that's where I'm from. So I'm very much from an island nation, and I'm from a coastal community. But in fact, this is where I've been privileged enough to work across the globe. in the Northern Hemisphere, but much more recently in the Southern Hemisphere, in the Indian Ocean, and also down in Antarctica, working in submersibles with remotely operated vehicles and also other types of sensors and equipment so that we can visualize, measure, and manage our oceans better. I grew up by the ocean. Terrible picture there on the left. That's me with my hair in ribbons, with my brother or my grandmother. But the ocean still means a lot to me today. And you can also see another picture of me. That's me in the yellow trousers on the front of the bowsprit of this Thames sailing barge, very much a historic area, part of the Thames estuary. She's over 100 years old. And yes, we still do race her. So let me tell you a little bit more about what I do, just in one slide before I move on to this climate-ocean nexus. So this is me in the submersible. There's the submersible in Maldives. And with the Maldives Marine Research Institute, that was our last expedition, working with that team to help them create a map of their deep waters and then how they can best use that, which is part of their marine spatial plan. I also work directly with policymakers in my role in DOSI, the Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative, where I'm the co-lead of the Pollution and Plastics Working Group. And you can see the Eiffel Tower behind me. So obviously there I'm in Paris, and that was at the Intergovernmental Communication on Plastics, and that's about the Global Plastics Treaty, negotiating those terms. So let's move on and really ask ourselves this question. What is the ocean and what does it do for me? Well, I just picked up some pictures of the ocean that I have. Some clear waters. This is a picture up there on the left that I took in Seychelles. Picture on the right is also a picture I took, and that was in the UK in the winter. They look very different, but it is still one ocean. And indeed, our deep ocean looks very different. You can see here a remotely operated vehicle looking at a beautiful, vibrant reef. But we also get vibrant reefs down at a few thousand meters. The image you can see there on the bottom left is from the Southwest Indian Ocean ridge on a seamount. So what does this actually look like? We call these parts of the oceans very different things. So I'm going to start off with some of those definitions, just in case I use them today. Our photic or our light reefs. There's that picture of that vibrant reef. And then the areas me and my team explore is really thinking about those mesophotic or middle life light reefs. Then moving into rarer photic reefs, not very much light there, rare light, and then into the deep sea. The deep sea traditionally was defined at about 200 meters. And this is because the majority of our light at that point has completely been dissipated from the waters. So very different organisms live down below 200 meters. I've shown you just a few examples, but I did want to put a plug in here for lots of other deep water habitats. You can see this amazing six-gill shark over in a sedimented area. We've already seen the seamount and that manganese crust and cobalt crust on the seamount, which is where a lot of corals live. And yes, that is coral, and yes, it is at a few thousand meters. But we can also see hydrothermal vents. This is one that is not active anymore, but you can see those amazing shapes. And the life that is on these vents is absolutely unique. So I've shown you a little bit about the places in the ocean that I've seen. But remember, even if we never see the ocean in our lifetimes, it is important to us as humans, to a global society, and in fact, every living organism on this planet now, in the past, and in the future. And some of these examples I just took from this wonderful infographic by Carleton College is thinking about our food, fishing, and aquaculture. So some of those resources that we harvest out of the ocean. The ocean itself is really important for protection. We know that mangroves coral reefs, and things like seagrass beds dissipate the energy from the ocean to protect coastline communities. And two other examples here is around cultural identity and tourism. And definitely my identity as a human and as a marine human is very much based on the ocean. However, the story is not all rosy. We do have multiple ocean stresses. And it's the first one there to the left, a picture I took in Antarctica. This is of broken up ice. And this was the first time ever it had been recorded as broken ice over this bit of our planet. Prior to that, it was a completely harmonious solid layer. So this is the stress of climate change, which I'm going to be talking about. Also got stresses such as illegal, unreported, and damaging fisheries, and also pollution. And you see an example there of some physical pollution, but of course this is also chemical, but sometimes a little bit harder for us to see. So now moving really on to the ocean climate links, which is what I've been asked to share. And please, if anyone's interested in the research, please do get in touch. So I just thought it would be a useful place to start to look at actually how the ocean interacts with our environment. And I just pulled out this image by some fellow scientists. Now, you don't have to remember anything specific. There's not going to be any tests at the end. But I do want you to notice that it is the increase in carbon dioxide and the increase in temperatures across the ocean that is leading to a number of different impacts. And we're going to look at these impacts on two different ecosystems in a moment. But I want you to notice that there's multiple interactions between the air and the ocean. You can see in the interface here. And then as we go down through the ocean, there is not one layer of the ocean that is not impacted by the consequences of climate change. So one we've all heard about is the challenge of climate change and coral reefs. Again, this is a lovely infographic that I pulled out from NOAA that went through all of the different aspects. So for example, when we have ocean warming, we have thermal stress. And thermal stress means that the little zooxanthellae, so the tiny little algae that live in the coral and provide them energy, are expelled. Now, these little algae, let's think about them, they're plants, so they get their energy from photosynthesizing, and it's this energy that they then give to the coral. Now, but when the coral gets stressed, it expels these algae, which is not great for the coral and not great for the algae, but this is what causes the bleaching. And it is a prolonged section of stress, or thermal stress in this case, that then causes the coral to die because it doesn't have any energy. The ocean waters that tropical corals live in don't have very many nutrients in them, so they can't just absorb it from the water. They need their nutrients and their energy coming from the little zooxanthellae. You can imagine this also happening when we're seeing sea level rise. So there's more ocean washing over the sediment at the surface, and that sedimentation is then smothering the coral, also then doing the same thing, reducing the amount of photosynthesis that the little zooxanthellae, this little tiny algae in the coral, can do. As we move forward, we can also see changes in patterns, so stronger and more frequent storms, and this causes physical disruption to the coral. I'm sure those of us who've been in the ocean have really felt how strong the ocean can be, even when it looks very calm at the surface. And then we can also see things such as precipitation, greater rain and runoff, and indeed greater acidification through the ocean creates these different pH levels. And this can create barriers in the ocean as well, so that we've got a structure between the shallow and the deep. And one thing we do know about the ocean is it needs to be all connected. And this leads on to the final point here around altered ocean currents. Changes in all of these aspects we've spoken about means that there are changes in the ocean. And indeed, this is what coral can look like. And I want you to notice the lack of fish in this image in comparison with that one I showed you, the vibrant reef earlier. So just moving on to seagrass, the story is very much the same. It has many different functions that it provides for us. But when we add climate change consequences to this, storms, additional rain, that change in pH, that additional acidification, all causes challenges to how the system functions. But what I do want you to notice is that across the planet, it doesn't act the same. And I just pulled these two images out of Statistica. But I want you to notice that although some countries have caused the consequences of climate change, released those greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, it's many other nations that are impacted by those. We can think, there's an example here of sea level rising, what that would look like, countries, but I think of countries that I've worked with, like Maldives. They're looking at the complete removal of their country if we have full sea level rise. So we really need to remember that it's a consequence that's happening to all of us, but we're all disproportionately impacted. And often those that are already underprivileged or have not had the opportunities that maybe some of us have had are being disproportionately impacted. So just here in summary, we have an ocean, air, land nexus. We cannot get away from it. There is no way. We can't throw things away. It's still part of our planet. And that means that we have to own that and make that changes for the future. We benefit from the ocean. And even if we never go down to the ocean, we are benefiting from it every day. And as I just said, not all systems and people are impacted in the same way. So it's really important for us to ensure that we really understand that when we're saying they're not doing something, let's look in our backyards first. Now, there are a number of ocean-based solutions, and a report from the World Resources Institute said that actually 35% of the cuts needed can happen through the ocean. And this could be using renewables that are available on the ocean, and things like tidal and current power. We can think about decarbonising transport and tourism, and this is a really important point, but also the conservation and restoration of ecosystems is really important so that they can continue to provide the services that we need from them. And finally, there was an importance of being able to do some sustainable ocean food production. So I'd just like to say thank you very much. Lovely to talk with you today. I've spoken here about climate change in the ocean and the importance of that conversation together, but very happy to take questions on anything that's related to that or indeed on my own research. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Woodall. That was a strong message. I have one question for you. You mentioned many solutions, but if you would have to pick one single action that would make a big difference in the oceans, can you name one?
Yeah, no, I can. And I would say, I'm going to say lots. But actually, it's us as global citizens trying to keep the change in temperature to under 1.5 degrees. And that, okay, is maybe a bit of a fluke there, because actually that means we have to all do lots of things. We can't keep pointing the finger and saying they can change their lifestyle, somebody else can change theirs. We need to look what is our use of our resources and understand how we minimize that and how we support others to do the same. And remember that everybody can do something different because everybody is sitting in a different position of privilege and opportunity.
I want to thank you and wish you the best of luck in your important work. And have a great summer.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
And now our younger ocean advocate, Arya Yurdacan. Let's hear what Arya has to say about spreading the ocean message and engaging people in ocean advocacy. Please, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Happy World Ocean Week. Today, I will be talking about youth involvement in ocean advocacy and representing the blue generation for you. Next slide, please. Let's get started. I'm Arya. I'm a social entrepreneur and ocean lover from Istanbul, Turkey. I have startups focused on cleaning the ocean and promoting sustainable traveling. I was selected as one of the most promising entrepreneurs in Europe by Whites, and I'm a proud alumna of World Ocean Day Youth Advisory Council, United People Global Sustainability Leadership, and Junior Achievement Europe. I studied International Business Administration in Tallinn, Estonia, in Baltics. And this is a proof that you don't need to study marine-related topics or environment to become an ocean advocate. And that's one of the reasons why I love the ocean, because it connects us all regardless of our backgrounds. We can change the slide. So how did my ocean journey start? I grew up on an island in Istanbul, and I always loved swimming. However, plastic pollution often hit my body while I swim. I internalized this issue so much that throughout my education and through my kid years, I always undertook projects related to ocean conservation and did many research. By the end of high school, I founded my own startup called Entella, and with my team, we invented a product which is called Marine that cleans the ocean surface and takes the waste from the ocean surface. And we were selected as one of the Europe's top startup among 40,000 initiatives by Junior Achievement Europe. You can see the final picture on the left. And here's a prototype. We did many prototypes. We failed so many times, but we never lost our hope. We can change the slide. And I always wanted to create awareness, not only locally, but also globally. After that, I became World Ocean Day Youth Advisory Council member, and I met many young ocean leaders and activists from all around the world. We hosted the first 24 hours live stream event, connecting a global community of diverse change makers and joining the movement to take action to protect our blue planet. I attended many training sessions on ocean conservation. I planned many beach cleanups and organized ocean workshops and did an online ocean series on social media during the COVID-19 pandemic time when we were sitting at our houses. I'm also giving presentations at universities and high schools to the students to create awareness about the ocean and how to protect it. Next slide, please. And my main motivation for ocean advocacy is connecting, inspiring young people from all around the world and fostering a sense of responsibility to take action for our ocean. Youth engagement in ocean advocacy is highly important for several reasons, in my opinion. And to start with, educating and involving young people in ocean advocacy ensures a future commitment to marine conservation and innovative solutions to environmental challenges. We need more ecopreneurs who saves the ocean. Moreover, youth engagement in ocean advocacy increases awareness and promotes a cultural shift towards sustainability, ensuring we pass on a healthy planet to future generations like me and the other generations. Involving young people in ocean advocacy also promotes collaboration, ensuring the transfer of conservation knowledge and skills needed to address current and future challenges. And in my opinion, finally, young people have the potential to become influential leaders, advocating for policies and practices that benefit ocean health on both local and global scale. Next slide, please. And I know that we're talking about the problems and all these bad news, right? And I understand that sometimes it can be overwhelming. The bad news, the worries. And if you ever feel concerned about how you can save the ocean or change the world by yourself, you are not alone. And if you're ever worried and feel overwhelmed about the climate change, again, you're not alone. According to the research in the United States, 59% of people stated that young people are very concerned about climate change. And this brings us to the term climate change anxiety. Next slide, please. So what is climate change anxiety? It refers to the feelings of fear, worry, and stress related to the effects of climate change and perceived lack of action to address it. It manifests as emotional distress, persistent worry, sadness, or anger about the planet's future. It can cause physical symptoms as well, like headaches or other stress-related health issues. And there's a sense of helplessness, feeling overwhelmed by the scale of the problem and uncertain about how to contribute to the solutions. Climate change anxiety is mainly caused by media coverage. It can be personal experiences, global inaction, and future uncertainty. Next slide, please. And I know that climate change anxiety can sound negative, but I prefer to look at the positive side. We are all humans, and it's okay to feel these emotions like sadness, happiness, anxiety, fear. And when someone experiences anxiety, in my opinion, it usually means that they care deeply about the topic. So we can see that the young generation cares about our planet and our ocean. So how can we manage climate change anxiety? Firstly, get informed from trustworthy sources. Don't believe all the news, because there can be also a lot of fake news. Secondly, it is important to take action. Even small steps matters. And then try to connect with other people so that you will help less lonely. And never forget that take care of yourself first. If we're all well, we can help the world. Your mental health matters so much. And don't forget to limit news consumption and avoid getting lost in social media, because we see a lot of posts, especially our generation. And lastly, focus on solutions, not the problems only. Next slide, please. Here, I made some recommendations, groups to join, podcasts to listen, and I have some books that maybe you can be interested. So if you're interested, please take a picture, or later you can connect with me. Next slide, please. And I always like to highlight the good news as well. Yes, we have problems, but solutions as well. So never forget that. For example, there's a project that uses advanced machine learning to listen to and translate the communication of sperm whales, which it inspires me and personally excited me so much, because I'm really into whales. It's a fun fact about me. Another huge news is that scientists discovered 100 new marine species in New Zealand. So we have a lot more to discover. And in Australia, they're building living seawalls to help coral reefs and sea life. So as we can see, there's a lot of positive action happening too. So there is always hope. Next slide, please. With fighting for the climate change, because it's all related with the planet and our oceans, we have different zones, such as comfort zone, where you're not so into the climate change and not willing to learn. And then we have fear zone. For example, I am posting on social media, but other than that, I'm not taking any action, and I don't know where to start. And I'm not also questioning while buying from the brand zone, which we can see the greenwashing from the brands. And a step ahead, we have learning zone, where we actually question the brands, seek out for education, and also practice self-awareness. And lastly, we have the growth zone, where who is actively involved in change and not afraid to lead the change. And never forget that everyone's climate change and ocean advocacy journey is different. And it's okay if others are a step behind you. Everyone has their own way and own path. Next slide, please. So what can you do individually to engage in ocean conservation and ocean advocacy? First, I know everyone is saying, but that's one of the main solutions. Please reduce single-use plastic. Then we have reducing your carbon and water footprint by choosing more sustainable transportation and also not buying fast fashion. Then we have support conservation organizations so that you can also feel less lonely. Then we have informing those around you, share what you have learned. For example, yes, I attended this webinar, I'm also a speaker, but I also learned many things from the other speakers, and I will definitely share with my peers as well. Then we have events, join beach cleanup events, and if there aren't any events near you, don't be afraid to initiate one. Don't be afraid to lead the community. And lastly, consume sustainable seafood. There are only some of the things that you can do. There are a lot of things that you can do to protect our ocean, and every action matters, big or small. Next slide, please. Together, we can save the ocean, and together we will save the ocean. And I'm always one message away to connect. So feel free to connect with me, and thank you.
Thank you. That was so impressive and inspiring. And that was a clear call to action. Thank you for that. I wonder, do you yourself get overwhelmed sometimes? And how do you speak to yourself in those moments?
Actually, it's great that you ask, because currently I'm working on a podcast about mental health and climate change anxiety. I did a lot of work during my high school years and university. I'm 22 years old, by the way. And sometimes it can be overwhelming, and at some point you can get actually physically sick. So it's really important to not to burn out and take care of your mental health.
Thank you so much, and the best of luck with your work and your future. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And now we get to hold our breath. We will make a really deep dive into the ocean and the Arctic oceans with the world-famous underwater photographer, Greg Lecoeur. Are you there, Greg?
Yes, bonjour à tous. Hello, everyone.
Bonjour. We are so waiting to see your photos, so please go ahead.
Yeah, so first, thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to share some of my photographic journey. Okay, so I will introduce myself first. So I'm Greg Lecoeur. I'm an ocean and wildlife photographer. And 15 years ago, I changed my life because of these animals. I don't know if you know these animals. It's pilot whales. I took this photo 15 years ago, but more 20 years ago, I was sailing on the Mediterranean Sea. I have like a normal life. And I did this amazing encounter in the Mediterranean Sea. We stay a few minutes drifting together. The pilot whales come to the boat. They were like a big group, more like 50 individuals, and we share an amazing moment, and it was in the Mediterranean Sea. So when I come back on land and I start to share this encounter, the people don't trust me, the divers, my family, my friend. So I decide to buy my first camera, and I fall in love for photography, and especially underwater photography. So I was a diver, I was a sailor, so now I start to learn photography, and for me it was the best way to share my encounter, make souvenir, and witness about the nature. So after this encounter, a few years later, in 2010, I decided to change my life. So I quit everything in France, and I start to travel around the world, like a dive master, dive instructor, and a photographer, but more like a backpacker. So I start my journey in Galapagos, and then I went in Hawaii, California, Indonesia, many places, and I developed my photography style, and I took a lot of pictures and make a very nice portfolio. And 5 years later, I was awarded as the Nature Photographer of the Year by National Geographic. So for me, it was a very nice story. If I say that, it's because I want to encourage the young generation. I want to inspire people. I was very happy Fabien Cousteau was here because I'm from the generation of the movies The Big Blue and of course the Cousteau adventure. So for me it was very inspiring. And what I want to say is if you have dreams, if you have a passion, you have to follow it and try to live your passion 100%. I just show you some other photo from my portfolio. So since I got the award from Nat Geo, I continue to travel the world, and I start to organize my own expedition all around the world. I will show you just a few pictures of my work, like a best of. So you can see some green turtle in Tenerife. You can see some black tick shark in French Polynesia. Here is a giant manta ray you can find in Socorro in Mexico. Some crocodiles always. As you can see, I like big predator, but also I like to photograph plankton, nudibranch, until the whales. But I will talk more about this later. You can see here a leafy sea dragon from south of Australia. I really like bird as well. I like to photograph bird underwater. You can see a brown booby. This photo was taken in Malpelo. Here is a great hammerhead taken in the Bahamas. So we have the stellar sea lion from Vancouver Island. And I can show you also this one was a strip marlin taken in Mexico, so in Baja California. I really like this kind of photo. The people know my work for the way I try to tell story with my photograph. So what is very interesting when you do photography is you can tell story without word. And photography is a very nice tool to tell story. You don't need to talk any language. Everybody can understand a photo. And this is what I'm trying to do with my work and use this powerful tool of photography. As well, this is a sperm whale taken in Mauritius. You have here bottlenose dolphin taken in Rangiroa in French Polynesia. I really like French Polynesia as well because you can have a lot of big encounter with big animal. You have here sea otter. So same, I really like this photo because the story behind is very interesting. The sea otter normally live in fresh water in Scotland, but during the Viking period, they introduced this species in the Shetland Island. And the otter from the fresh water, they adapt and now they are living in the sea. So very interesting. You can see here, it's clownfish, sorry, taken in Papua New Guinea, and also landscape from Papua New Guinea. And then I want to show you this photo because this is from Antarctica. This is a crab-eater seal. And we organized an amazing expedition in this place. And the goal of the expedition was to see the effect of global warming. Since I'm living in Nice, and in France, and since 40 years, for me, it was very difficult to to see the impact of global warming. We are talking about this from a long time, but it's very difficult to see the impact. So we decide with friends, freediver Guillaume Néry and cameraman Florian Fischer, we decide to organize an expedition on a sailboat. It was a very small boat. And we sailed in Antarctica to photograph the biodiversity, but also to try to see what's going on, because we know Antarctica and Arctic, they are the first observatory of the climate change. So we went there, and we have a lot of, we can see a lot of things, the temperature, the melting, the cycle of life is different, especially for the penguin. We saw a lot of things. I can explain more if you have questions. But when I came back from this place, I did a book, and we did a lot of campaign with journalists, and the journalists always ask me a question, because I'm coming from the Mediterranean Sea. And also when I was traveling and I meet diver or anybody, they always ask me what we see in the Mediterranean Sea. And I feel people think the Mediterranean Sea is a sea with dead, there is no life. And me, I hate that, because the thing is there is a big lack of knowledge about the biodiversity and the place we are living. So I decided to create a project called We Are Mediterranean. But first, I would like to show you this photo. So this is a Mediterranean monk seal. So before, they were living in my place, and now there's still some living in Greece, in Turkey, but they almost disappear. And they survive on an island, and because of some conservation program, now they start to coming back in the Mediterranean Sea. I will show you another species, which is the angel shark. So I'm living in a place called Baie des Anges, and this shark gives the name at the Baie des Anges on the French Riviera. But this one disappeared totally. There is a few species in Corsica. It's just to give you an example, and I'll show you now this one. So this is, all the photo I will show you now is taken in the Mediterranean Sea. And this is a fin whales. It's the second larger mammifer in the world, and is living in the Mediterranean Sea. Is very common, so we have a lot now. And when you say to the people in my place, there is dolphin and whales and sharks and turtle in the Mediterranean Sea, they don't really trust us. So I decided to create an ONG called We Are Mediterranean. And the action is to show the beauty of the Mediterranean Sea, to valorize the biodiversity, and just to show all the people living around this place, there is a lot of amazing animals. And I have this chance to travel all around the world to document, to witness all the biodiversity, from the nudibranch to the big whales, from sharks, from everything. And I can witness today there is a lot of biodiversity in the Mediterranean Sea. I was talking about the journalists when we come back from Antarctica, and they always ask me if the Mediterranean Sea is the more polluted sea in the world. But of course, we are a lot of people living around this very small sea. The Mediterranean Sea is only 1% of the surface of the ocean. So it's very, very small, but it's a very big hotspot of biodiversity, because it's 17% of the biodiversity we know in the world. So for me, there is a a big lake of knowledge about this place. And if we want to protect biodiversity, we need to know it. As we say, we protect what we love. So since 2000, in my place, there is a sanctuary, the Pelagos Sanctuary, with a marine protected area to protect cetaceans. But nobody really know about it. There is no communication about it. So I decided to create this project through the ONG We Are Mediterranean, and we organize the expedition Pelagos to reconnect the people with nature. So now I will show you the beauty of the Mediterranean. There is two kinds of there is different habitat in the Mediterranean Sea. We call it the benthos. The benthic is the one living close to the coast, and there is the pelagic life, which is offshore. So first, let me show you some photos from the Med. I'm very happy to be here and share you these photos, because I think people don't really know the biodiversity in the Med. So this is a photo taken just in front of Nice. It's a reefscape. You can see a lot of life. In the Mediterranean Sea, there is also corals, like the red corals, which is deep. So the thing in the Mediterranean, it's a temperate sea. It's not like you go diving in the Maldives or in French Polynesia, you put a mask and you see a lot of color fish and things like this. You need to go a little bit deeper and a little bit far away to see all this biodiversity. But it's very stunning. It's a lot of colors. There is a lot of crustacea. You can see on this photo, it's a very small shrimp. Normally it's a greener shrimp, and you can see behind there is this octopus looking. We have a lot of nudibranch as well, very colorful. We have very emblematic fish like this grouper is a common grouper. We have also fish like this one, who for me now there is a big deal with this fish, because it's the Faber, and on the French Riviera you can eat this fish in all the restaurants, but when we go diving, it's more and more complicated to see this fish. And when you go to the restaurant and you ask where it's come from, you can see it travel not all the planet, but it's coming from Atlantic or other place. So for me, what I say in my photo is we try to tell story with. We show the beauty. We encourage the people to be more interesting about the ocean, about the environment, and I can't believe when I see all these fish traveling all around the planet. I show you another species, which is a stingray in the Mediterranean Sea. We have a lot of stingray. We also have this one, which is a sea horses. I don't know if you can read it, because it's very well camouflaged in his habitat in algae. Really like this one. We have also very color fish and interesting fish living in the sandy bottom. And we have a lot of behavior, of course. One of my work is to document behavior of the animals. And this is what I really like. And you can see this predation of cuttlefish on a very small fish at night. And now I will show you more photos about the pelagic life in the Mediterranean Sea. As you can see, we have all the emblematic species we can find all around the world, like the sperm whale. We have a lot of sperm whale in the Med, especially in the Pelagos sanctuary. They are not living so far away. They like a canyon and abyss and like big drop off. So you can go like 6-8 miles offshore and you can find a lot of males traveling alone. But since a few years, there is some observation of family, which is very encouraging. We can see a newborn sperm whale as well in this place. So very interesting. Now I will show you a photo of a fin whales underwater. So as I say before, it's the second marine mammal in the world, the bigger one. And it took me 20 years to take this photo. They are very shy. They are very, very fast. They are very big as well. And it's 70 tons. It's 25-meter long, but they are very, very shy. And we have a lot of chance to take this photo because this one was very nice, very gentle, and came around the boat. So we had just have to go in the water, and he came around, and it was very interesting. For me, it was a dream to take this photo because it's a very complicated animal to photograph. And of course, we have these amazing pilot whales living offshore, very nice, very social. They come around the boat. They are very nice, very interesting.
I would love to continue seeing these photos because they are amazing.
It's almost done. Sorry. So we have mola as well. We have sharks. We have ray. We have birds. A lot of life, but also we have some problem, and we document some birds, some plastic, and collision. I would love to talk about collision and sun pollution in the world, and especially in the Mediterranean Sea.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. These photos, I know you've heard this a million times, but they are amazing. So thank you so much for your work, and thank you so much for your time. And now it's time to introduce the organizations who have made this event possible. So please welcome the CEO of John Nurminen Foundation, Annamari Arrakoski-Engardt, founder of MEDSEA Foundation, Alessio Satta, and President Sabine Roux de Bézieux from Fondation de la Mer. Welcome, everyone. Great to have you on. And I'll start with you, Annamari. What does the Baltic Sea have in common with other seas?
Well, good question, Katri. Great to be here, first of all. Well, the Baltic Sea is linked to the Atlantic, and the Baltic Sea is shallow sea with brackish water. The effects of the climate change can be seen more rapidly here. The increase of water temperature, the increase of anoxic seabeds, and the loss of biodiversity, and to some extent, the acidification. So the Baltic Sea functions like a time machine for oceans both ways, good and bad. The results of protection can be seen quicker here. The Baltic Sea has been researched for over 100 years, so the changes can be monitored and manifested. So the results of the work of John Nurminen Foundation with our concrete projects fighting the largest problems of the Baltic Sea, like eutrophication or the hazardous substances or the loss of biodiversity, are really measurable.
Well, we have two other organizations joining us. Can you tell, Annamari, what do you have in common with these two marine foundations?
Well, I would say, first of all, the love for the oceans, love and understanding that we really are living on the blue planet. And secondly, really the sense of urgency and the sense of sharing knowledge and expertise and joining forces for greater impact in protection and conservation of the seas.
Thank you. And then we have founder of MEDSEA Foundation, Alessio Satta. We know that the biggest problem here in the Baltic Sea is eutrophication, but what about the Mediterranean? what are the biggest environmental challenges you have?
First of all, good afternoon, everybody. Very happy to be here with our friends. I mean, the list is long. Mediterranean Sea is facing a lot of critical environmental challenges. I mean, eutrophication is not really the top priority, but I would mention definitely marine plastic pollution, overfishing, loss of biodiversity, and of course, climate change. Let's focus for a second on plastic pollution. I mean, the Mediterranean is considered one of the world's greatest accumulation zones for marine litter. We have more or less 300,000 tons of plastic introduced in the Mediterranean every year, with all the impacts that we can easily imagine for marine and coastal habitats. Another one is overfishing. Overfishing in the Mediterranean has led to a dramatic decline in fish population. There are many actions to reverse this trend, but still overfishing is one of the most pressing impact in the Mediterranean. Coastal development is also another one related to the fact that the Mediterranean is still the first tourist destination in the world. So coastal development, coastal urbanization is going very, very fast. Last but not least, I would say, is climate change. Mediterranean is a global climate hotspot, and is warming much faster than any other ocean. We already have overcome and passed the 1.5 degrees in the Mediterranean, and also sea temperature is warming faster. In 2023, we have measured an incredible level of warm waters, which were 5-6 degrees above the average. So this, of course, it's let's say damaging, impacting all the species in the Med. They're attracting invasive species, which are becoming, a largest threat in the Mediterranean. But yeah, I will stop here, but you see there is a lot of work to do for us. We will not get more.
Thank you, Mrs. Satta. And next we have Sabine Roux de Bézieux from Fondation de la Mer. We all know that France has a reputation of being a global maritime nation. How does that show in your work today?
I hope it's not only a reputation, but it's a reality. For historical reason, France has territories on every ocean on the planet, and can also host every type of marine ecosystem. That actually shows very well in the pictures that Greg Lecoeur shared with us. In the French territories, you have coral reefs, mangroves, all types of seagrass, and also a very wide diversity of marine species. And because our country is located in every ocean in the northern and the southern hemisphere, our scientists and the local NGOs we work with face all kinds of issues that the ocean is facing. This geographic position is a great honor for our country, but it's also a big responsibility that at Fondation de la Mer we try to honor. Concretely, what does that mean? That means that we support science, and that was well said before, but we only protect what we know, and we need to know the species and the ecosystems to be able to protect them properly. We also work globally on plastic pollution, on restoring these damaged ecosystems. I'm thinking in particular of seagrass in the Mediterranean Sea, or mangroves all over the planet, and also coral reefs. France is the 4th largest coral reef country in the world. And then the final dimension for that is education. And with our French language, we work with a number of countries that share our language. I'm thinking of Western Africa or Madagascar. They have amazing marine ecosystems and biodiversity. and they do not necessarily have the scientists or the financial means to protect their ecosystems, and we're working with their population to help them.
I have a question for all of you. What would you like to achieve by 2030? So that's 6 years from now. And let's go Italy, Finland, France.
Starting from the south. I mean, MEDSEA is very much involved in Mediterranean cooperation. We are working on nature-based solution as well on plastic reduction. And we are investing a lot in Posidonia restoration together with Fondation de la Mer. We believe that seagrass restoration together with the restoration of other coastal ecosystems is a key for improving our capacity to adapt to climate change. So our scope is to reach more than 1 million cuttings to plant of Posidonia by 2030, which means, of course, providing a concrete solution also for the resilience of coastal communities.
And France.
I think my dream for 2030 is that we achieve together a better global governance for the ocean. Currently at the United Nations level, there are a number of treaties that are being discussed and negotiated, and Fondation de la Mer is part of these negotiations. For example, an international treaty legally binding to fight plastic pollution. There are also negotiations in Kingston, Jamaica to protect the seabed from seabed mining. And then finally, last year was signed the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction Treaty that is trying to protect what we call the high seas, that's 64% of our planet. So far, only 5 countries have ratified this treaty, and whereas almost 70 countries have signed the treaty. France Parliament voted this treaty last week. We still need to have it pass through the Senate, and we are the first European country to ratify the treaty. So there is an urgency, and that's probably my ambition for my dream for 2030, that all these global treaties are actually ratified and come into force to protect our global ocean that is a common good for humanity.
And still Finland, it's a bit like the Eurovision Song Contest.
I do hope not. Since this year we weren't not so lucky. By 2030, I do hope that we all together here around the Baltic Sea will have been able to decrease the eutrophication. We'll have cut the nutrient loads from land to sea, both in agriculture, in forestry, as well as in any point sources that they are still there. The other thing I do hope by 2030 is that we have been able to increase the biodiversity that is really suffering here in the Baltic Sea by, as you can see in the picture, by planting and replanting the seagrass here, foremost in the south of the Baltic Sea. We are doing that at the moment at the Finnish coastline, and it is a tough task. Thirdly, I would totally agree with Sabine. We need more and concrete international treaties in order to really keep this planet on the right track, on the more sustainable track. And we have to also implement those treaties and contracts we have already in place. So lots of work to do, but I also know how much oceans and healthy planet means for most of the people. And so I do believe that there are loads of people working towards the same goal.
I want to thank the 3 of you. I want to thank everyone. This is a conversation that will continue. We're now almost halfway through the United Nations Ocean Decade. And as we have heard, there's still much to be done, but it's not impossible. I will leave you with some of the messages we heard from our wonderful speakers. Take action, follow your dreams, There's always hope, and you are not alone. Thank you, dear audience. Thank you, speakers and panelists, and have a wonderful World Ocean Day. The recording of this webinar will be available in a few days on the John Nurminen Foundation webpage. Enjoy everything that the seas and oceans bring us, because we still can. Bye.